Inmendham video. Yeah, what a surprise. Beardy Man, the modern mystic, Nick, has made a video. Surprise, surprise. And seems like he might make more, maybe, possibly. So he called it the priority pyramid, and it is on the basic subject of the illusion that we're doing some kind of personality thing, like the I thing, like I'm here and the rest of the world is out there, and the I thing isn't just part of the rest of the world just swirling in a little bit different container. It's just another symptom of the the whole system, and it does things just like a tree does them, but it also does things it's just a manifestation of the history, the causes and effects, and it just piles up into this, and we have this sense that it's experiencing it, having thoughts pop into your head, having words come out of my mouth that I didn't really know I was going to say, but somehow I knew how to say them because somehow I'm a thing, and I kind of can predict what the thing that's me will do is, because it's something. And the truth is, it's really nothing. It's just your brain is making this thing happen. And there's no real you. There's just a bunch of chemistry squirting stuff and making certain things stick. That kind of, So you get into this idea of what thoughts, what ideas you have are, you're just being gamed by the game, like you're just being cliche, and the ones that might be, hey, this might be something more, in terms of getting it, understanding, watching the eddy get formed. I guess at the eddy, I've always liked that kind of analogy. If there's probably people who've never seen a stream or never, but I mean, there's this swirly bits that happen when you have a dam or something, and they seem very complex, but they're being caused by a very simple, slowness in the flow, and but yeah, understanding that, and that's sort of the challenge of understanding and being able to like throw a rock in one place and fundamentally change how the eddy spins. That's sort of the idea, is having control, quote unquote, under the mechanism that's controlling you, right? And there's no having control. There's only a theme of ideas that can say, we have to maximize our power. We have to take control of the mechanism. So it is kind of interesting because it's very much like this, that it is a battlefield of ideas that takes place in your own soul, your little brain, in terms of what gets solid, and kept, and becomes you, what you're for and what you're against, what you aspire to be. Maybe you aspire to be it, but you're not going to invest too much effort into it. Not going to jump on any grenades. That subject came up. The whole motivation thing came up. And really what I want to get to is the idea that I think Nick would argue from some idiotic, the best perspective is the whatever perspective, the one that makes the food taste as good. And I'm going to argue from the perspective that, no, the best perspective is the one that gets you to excrete out of yourself the most beneficial impact on the whole game, because the game is big, you are small. The game is doing exactly what you're doing, it's just doing a lot more of it. And if you can grease the whole game, make the whole thing happen easier, less blood spilled, that's a huge win versus the silly accomplishment of saying, I didn't bleed too much. The I didn't bleed too much thing is trivial in terms of playing a good game. The real game is the stop the blood out there. And he's too feudalistic, too not up to that challenge of changing the world. you know, too, he's concluded it's not worth the investment. And I would argue that it's a minor investment when you think about it, and the payoff is huge. So it's definitely something to aspire to do. Not to, maybe you don't want to work too hard at it, fine, but not to aspire to being a fixer and not a breaker. And that's what it all comes down to. Are you going to be a breaker, or are you going to be a fixer? That's it. And, I mean, I shouldn't have to say this, but fixers are good, breakers are bad. It's the difference between poo-poo and food, This one is, I mean, maybe that's not a good analogy, because there's nothing intrinsically but, and that gets to the whole value arguments, which are just so funny, because idiots like Hoffaday, who think every value is a subjective value. Because you like bologna sandwiches, and you didn't rationally choose to like bologna sandwiches, therefore everything you like is you didn't choose. There was no rational process that took place in figuring out the right answer. It's just so stupid. Insanely stupid. Mystic has a little of that, to tell you the truth, but anyway, it's just good to see him again. His beard's gotten very white, though. I suppose that happens. So, as a side subject, this James mcginn guy, who I've been, who's been on the physics page more than the inmendham page. Anyway, he keeps changing the subject of my physics, and it's kind of annoying, because he has these certain subjects in which he has a passion. And so he posted a comment that is just not really relevant to my physics stuff, so, but I figure it's sort of related to this conversation about what a human being is, what our brain is capable of doing, and the difference between the part of the brain that does this logic thing, that is, it acquires facts, like tree hard, tree rough, face soft, don't put face in tree. It does this kind of logic thing and figures out right answers, how to go around the tree. And he sort of has a theory that we evolved to be idiots. I mean, irrational, like have spirit feelings or something. And I think that's all nonsense, because we didn't have any complex philosophical thoughts until maybe 10,000 years ago, 20,000, let's say. I mean, they just weren't there. We were just animals eking, and we didn't have, just imagine, no conversations. You didn't hear any people talking, and you didn't do any talking in your life, substantive, besides fuck you. How much philosophy would you be capable of? It would be almost nothing, vacuous. Anyway, so he says something Gould. Okay, so I just used Gould as an example, and then he took that as an opportunity to play this whatever, to change the subject, which is irritating. But here's the real challenging observation about punctuated equilibrium. It appears not to be applicable to human evolution. In other words, why is human evolution niche dependent? Almost everything is niche dependent except for herd animals, and it really just has to do with the necessity. First, it's a food thing. Niches are also often defined by food sources, and the fact that organisms become dependent on certain vegetation to live, and that's why they live where they live. Mountain gorillas, for example. They eat a certain leaf, and that's it. You don't give them that leaf, they don't really go anywhere, because they want to eat leaves. So lots of animals are dependent on their niche, in terms of their environmental niche, because it's one they're suited to. They've been evolved to do that, and that's what they do. And they don't really do the adapt thing. And clearly most animals are trapped in that. But the other thing is also the how to keep your numbers in check. And so there's all kinds of strategies to create mechanisms that cause enough attrition where you don't go through feast and famine stages. Where you don't over-replicate, then you all end up starving to death, and then your population goes down to almost zero, and then you're vulnerable to be extinct and all that kind of stuff. So the organisms that survive over time are the organisms that have some balances to their population growth. And like for the simians, it's mass murder. You know, that's just a fact. There's not a predator that kills, I mean, chimpanzees kill more chimpanzees than predators kill chimpanzees. You know, that's just the way it has to be, because that's part of the competition too with each other. That's how you define the alpha troop, so to speak. And you know, it's the game. But it really doesn't have anything to do with punctuated equilibrium to talk about, because that's just a fact that small populations do the changing because they do more inbreeding, and they're not diluted by the herd. I mean, I've been through this already, so I don't really want to. Some people will be saying, "Oh, you already said that, Gary." All right, I know the answer to the question, and it's not easy to comprehend. Oh, yeah, you're just not at all patronizing. But the answer involves understanding how and why human evolution is categorically distinct from the evolution of other species. I would argue that evolution takes time for it to really work, because it's a crude process. So if you're going to tell me human beings did some kind of dramatic evolution over the last 10,000 or 20,000 or even 40,000 years, I'd say, bullshit. The only thing that's evolved over that period of time is our knowledge base. You could take a human from 200,000 years ago and put him in high school, and he'd be almost as smart as you are, pretty much. And that's just a fact. So this evolution shit is just sort of bullshit. We haven't been evolving for a long time because we've been taking care of our sick, been subsidizing the defectives for a long time. Lots of things that are kind of weeded out any kind of notion of survival of the fittest or any of that kind of crap. So I think it's just stupid to say we've been evolving. I mean, yes, there's some evolution in the sense that there's some dominant genes of the dictators and the monarchs and the kings and, you know, the people who exploited their power and killed all their enemies and impregnated all the women and did all that kind of stuff. But it's a minor percentage, and I think a minor influence on our progression. So the key thing was tools. So obviously tools made it possible for the human ape to adapt to different environments, because they could, you know, plant and look, the first tool was a wheat cutter. I mean, they cut grass. It's just a fact. We became baboons, you know, the other animal that sort of left the trees halfway anyway. They're grass eaters. That's what we were. Probably poo eaters too, but anyway, that's a whole nother subject. And fire gave us a huge capacity to preserve our food and to yes, the storage and whatever the right word would be, sanitation, you know, that kind of stuff. So it made it, we could eat a lot more different kinds of things because we could cook it, like meat, which was just kind of a silly sidetrack, but whatever, it was a real sidetrack. Anyway, so he says to research ecological gatekeeping hypothesis, Claudius Dirk and James McGinn. So, you know, he has apparently a whole little theory. Anyway, understanding the true cause of human evolution. So again, he thinks there's some special evolution that took place for humans. Will allow one to understand the origins of human instinct. Yes, another pile of crap. Humans have so few instincts. I just think that's nonsense. To harbor hyper-pseudo-fictionalized truths. Yeah. So, I mean, he thinks that we are prone, and the only thing that makes humans prone is, first, we're selfish. So if we have a choice over what kind of world we choose to live in, like we can choose gingerbread land or cat shit land, yeah, we're going to choose gingerbread land, right? So we're selfish. And it was only the fact that the book hadn't been written, there was no edict explaining all the facts of life, how round the world was, what the moon was made out of, all that kind of stuff. So we had to make it up. And of course people made up like, yeah, what's the moon made out of? Well, it's made out of dust and meteorite particles and radioactive crap. Or cheese. Hey, cheese. Yeah, let's go cheese. Yes, so yes, there's some of that in there. So the fact that we were ignorant, that we had to learn for ourselves, doesn't mean that we are fundamentally got some stick broken in our brain that says, be stupid, believe in bullshit. No, there's no believe in bullshit gene. So, it's just a consequence of having the opportunity to write the book to our own advantage. And the only thing that stops that is over time, humans with a little bit of integrity say, oh, that's bullshit. And they write a better book. And over time, that's happened. Now, still, the earth is dominated by religious kooks, even though we have really good books explaining how that just isn't reasonable. It's, in fact, retarded. I mean, you have to go intellectually backward to find that possible. Even in a crude, ignorant society, you still gotta you really gotta just turn yourself into a kid to believe that shit. But yes, that's a big problem. There's still a ton of people on Earth who are stunningly ignorant of physical facts and believe absolute nonsense. So that gets us back to the mystic, and why we are who we are, and how we become what we are, and how do we maximize what we are by somehow choosing, somehow seeing the insight in, seeing the value of, having it occur to us that, hey, I'm playing a part in all of this. I have a certain responsibility. Yes, some of that blood, I caused it. It's my fault. And the bigger argument, which is, it's my fault if I let it keep happening. If I don't do anything about it and I know it's bad, then I'm bad, because I'm feeding the bad, I'm facilitating the bad, I'm supping with the devil, or whatever you want to, however you metaphor the fact that I'm driving the getaway car. I'm making it possible for the bad to happen, because I'm not doing anything to stop it. So, it's sort of an interesting, you go through an interesting chain of words when you go to try to find out whether something is altruistic, unselfish, and selfish, because, as I pointed out, the only way you can do something is you selfishly have to think you have to do it. I mean, it's good for you to preserve your honor, your dignity, your not to be a hypocrite, whatever the negative thing is that you're preventing. But I'm just saying, there's no way you can do something unless your brain has somehow said it's right for you. That's the role you should play in the movie. Yeah, that's roles made for you, or you're not going to do it. So it always has to be selfish in that sense, is that your identity has defined it as right, and you're stuck with it. Your Eddie says so, and you can't change that. But there is I think there's an important distinction. I mean, that fact, okay, eliminates some need to waste time going through this nonsense of what's selfish and what's altruistic, because it's all kind of selfish in a sense. But there clearly is a distinction between those things we do because we're going to get more personal glory or comfort, and those things you do when you know you're not going to get any of that shit. You're just going to keep your self-respect. You're just going to be able to look at yourself in the mirror. That's a huge difference from the things that have all this immediate personal profit and things that have immediate personal discomfort and pain. Or worse, like jumping on a grenade. I mean, hell, it's hard to call that a selfish act. I mean, it has to be in a sense, but you don't throw it in the same category with some asshole who's, pulled the guy's wallet out of his back pocket. I mean, it's trivializing what we understand to be very differently motivated things, and that there are real things that are admirable and things that are despisable. There's good things, there's productive things. I guess that's, I love that word. But I mean, that should be the word. That should be the thing everybody's trying to be, is productive, in the sense of create more good than bad. Fix more things than you break. I mean, it's not that complicated. Heal more wounds than you cause. Whatever. I mean, there's just so many things you could use to, but I'm just saying that's it. So there's good principles, because they're principles that motivate or oblige you to do better. And those kinds of ideologies define us. And the idea is we're seeking, so everybody's seeking winning. So that's another way to look at it. Everybody's seeking to be a winner. And it's all about how you define being a winner, right? So the winner is the guy who, like in baseball, who, he wants to hit a home run, but a bunt will get him on first base and they can win the game, and he does he sacrifices himself, so to speak. He sacrifices his historic records that he could be setting because he knows this is the way you win. And winning can't be done as an individual, because he's playing a game that's not an individual game. And it's that recognition that if you're going to define winning based on your personal what's in it for me, that's playing the kids' game. That's the kids' version. The grown-up version is a different game entirely. And that, I think, is the big point here. The definition of winning and losing. There's a smart definition and a stupid definition. There's an educated definition and an ignorant definition. And that's the biggie. Huge. And so understanding that you have, that winning is being a fixer, not a breaker, in the real world. Because that's the bigger world. There's more brains in the real big world than in your head. Winning for one brain is a trivial accomplishment relative to winning for a lot of brains. So that'd be enough. It's always going to come down to those kind of arguments, I suppose, because, well, that's not always. I mean, it's an interesting conversation just to go through the processing of the mechanism, and all you can do is kind of symbolically represent it. So he does it with a pyramid of themes or tokens or concepts. I think concepts is a good word. Yeah, concepts that we prioritize, that somehow have migrated, percolated to being something important, and things we look out for. Trees and bears and tigers, that we've identified the threats to us. The threat is complacency and laziness and selfishness and so on. And we notice if there's tracks of that around us and say, we got to do better, that kind of thing. I mean, there's a method to those, once those themes are established as ideals, that you're going to keep trying to climb higher, do better. And I guess part of it is the fact that it is such a, we live in a world that is such a profound mess. It's like having an infinitely high mountain to climb. And so every day you just go, well, there's more above me, so higher I must go. And every day it's, oh, yeah, there's still more to get done. So there's no completion for the individual. There's just doing your, pulling your part of the load. If your ambition is to accomplish the task, because it's going to take a lot of people carrying a lot of bricks to the top of that little hill before you can write the truth in the stone. you know, and have it mean something in terms of affecting the course of human function. What will humans be? Hopefully they'll be what the best humans have made them. And hopefully the best humans won't be feudalists and fatalists who decide, it can't happen, so fuck it. I'll just sit on a bench and throw a rock in the air. There, I did my part. Not good enough. Anyway, yeah, that's yeah. Mostly satisfied with that until next time. But I'm just, it's nice to have Nick back, so that's why I made the video, because, there's just so few people capable of intelligent articulation. And he's mostly capable of that. Okay, anyway, till next time.